gang. Green above.
Here we go. History in the making.
Green, green, green.
What many saw as a boring finish to Talladega, others saw as a brilliant driving display by Austin Cindric. Now we hit a stretch of races at intermediate tracks where we really find out what teams have. Hi, this is Brett McMillan. Welcome to the Pit Reporters. With me this week, Dustin Long from NBC Sports and Josh Sims from Fox Sports.
Welcome to the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network. And now, here's your host, Brett McMillan.
Welcome to the show. Glad to have Dustin and Josh here. And we'll just, you guys, you can be civil, can't you?
Oh, we could try.
Try. I like that. Hey, glad to have you guys here. And, you know, as I said in the open, a lot of people have been going, they didn't get the big one. That's what they wanted at Talladega, Dustin. They want the big one. They didn't get that. I thought it was brilliant driving by Austin Cindric, not to get too far ahead on that last lap, to stay parallel pretty much with Ryan Preece, and never gave anybody the opportunity to get out and make a run at him on that last lap.
You mean he ran beside a car that wasn't there?
Well, as it turned out, he wasn't there, but at the time he was.
No, I tell you what, great run by Austin Cindric, but if you think about it, I mean, you know, Josh, here's a guy that could have won all three drafting track races. I mean, up at the front, right at the end before the Daytona 500, and has the incident with Kyle Larson in the last few laps at Atlanta. It's just like, you know, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but that was like one guy I was watching going into Talladega, because it's like we knew the Team Penske cars had been so fast, and it was just like, when are they going to win? And they finally did.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you knew it was only a matter of time before it happened. It was surprising with how many laps he had led at Daytona, how strong he had been at the drafting track so far, and to come away with nothing, you're like, wow, what is it going to happen for Austin? And then when he was in position late and Kyle Larson was behind him, and I'm watching that storyline, and I'm like, Kyle Larson's finally going to beat the streak. And you know he was on that second line, but I'm like, he's going to do something to get around him. But Austin was able to hold it off and get into victory lane. And what a celebration, man. Shout out to my guy Regan Smith, who took a shove and got picked up by Austin Cindric. But
no, wait. Now, if Austin had done that to you, he would have bounced off of you.
Yeah,
that's what I like bigger than Regan.
Right, yeah. I spend more time in the gym than Regan. Don't let him know.
Also a little bit taller than Regan, too. But that's beside the point. But no, it was a great celebration. But you guys are right. I mean, I think he is an underappreciated driver as far as on the almost said restrictor plate tracks, on the super speedways. I don't think people appreciate how good a super speedway driver he is.
He studied. Yes. you really have to say, and I think, again, he's been in the Penske operation for so long, and he's seen it through his dad, Tim Cindric, and all the years being at Penske, and just seeing how that operation works, but just being around, you know, what Brad Keselowski when Brad was there, and Joey and Ryan, and how they study, and the success that they've had at these tracks, and you know, or how often they've been up there toward the front. I think he's had a very good structure to look at and see how some of the better ones do it, and take what he learned from, and then kind of personalize it to what works best for him. And I think that's helped make him a really good driver on those tracks.
Yeah, and I just think back to the amount of times I've heard Jamie Little say on Pit Road, or say in our meetings on Fox, how he is one of the most hardest working drivers in the garage. And I see the amount of time he spends, you know, at his hauler with that laptop he's walking around with, and the amount of work he puts into his craft, so that, you know, he is prepared for these different scenarios. Is it always going to come out the way he wants it to? No, but he's doing a good job of putting himself in position, especially on these super speedways, so that he has the shot to capitalize. And you know, he works on these different scenarios and what to do in this situation and that. It was a matter of time before it came through in his favor, and we saw that this past weekend.
Well, and as I talked about at the top, he'd start to pull ahead, then he'd kind of back off a little bit. Then he kind of, you know, but he did a nice job not getting too far ahead and kind of backing it up a little bit to stay even with Preece through most of that final lap, which I thought prevented anybody from making a run from behind him, Dustin.
Well, I think the key too is you have to look back at the third, fourth, and fifth cars in line, and just, you know, again, it was a unique situation. You had the two Fords out front. You had the two Hendrick cars in second, and I think you had at least I want to say there was at least another Ford back there in the next row or so. That it was kind of a jumble mess. Now at the end, everybody wants to go for it, but you know, with all these rules, although we heard a little bit about that with the Team Penskes, with all these rules, you don't want to push, or you're not supposed to push the other manufacturer to the win or something like that. So It was just a very unique dynamic there at the end. And that was one thing I was watching. I was like, who's going to make the move? Because these guys talk about you can't get out of line or you're going to fall back. So who's going to make that move and where's it going to come from? And I think that helped Austin. But I think you got to look at the third, fourth, fifth in line, because that's where those runs really come from. Because
we'd seen, four wide numerous times during the course of the day, Josh, but nobody wanted to step out and make that run or attempt to make that run because, hey, the key is you got to have somebody go with you.
Yeah, and that a little bit was a product of the fuel save, right? If people are going 70%, 60%, 80%, then that allows the pack to stay closer, and it gives you that four wide. But at the same time, when you have that four wide, like there's nowhere to go. You're almost in a parking lot where there aren't moves to be made. There's just not enough space, and you're going to cause that wreck at that time. I thought it was interesting to watch when the Toyotas decided at one point, like, let's go. It's time to go. Let's do something different than this fuel save that we've been seeing the last couple of years at Talladega. Obviously, it didn't work out for them because what we saw later with the huge block from Ross Chastain, which was another huge storyline in this race. But I thought it was interesting to see a manufacturer decide, let's do something different than trying to do this fuel save to get something different going out there. Because you can only do it for so long and hold these drivers back. We know the drivers want to go, but they also know that the smart thing to do is the fuel save, because each and every one I talked to in the garage before the race was like, well, this is just what we have. This is the product of what it's going to be. Do I like it or not? That doesn't matter. This is what it's going to be going forward.
Yeah, and the Toyotas made it fun to watch.
Yeah.
Because when they got out front, then they forced everybody, as Josh said, speed up, and you didn't have that four wide. It was 2 lanes each.
Yep.
2 lanes. And I'll tell you what, the thing that really intrigues me is, this was a regular season race, and Toyota threw this out for that. And it's like, why wouldn't you save this for Talladega in the fall when it is in the third round this year, and the winner goes on to the championship race? So there's a part of me wonders, hey, did they try this too early, a race too early, or is it something leads to something else? I'm really curious to see what they or somebody else will do in later this year, because now Talladega moving to the third round, hey, you win that, you're in the championship 4. So I think there's going to be more teamwork, or the manufacturer going to say, hey, we got these 4 guys, or we got these 3 guys. It's like, these are the ones that we're going to follow, or we're going to do things for. And I'm really going to be interested to see how all that plays out later this year.
Well, you guys mentioned it, that there has been some pushback on Ross Chastain's move, basically coming into pit with the Toyotas. And then Denny Hamlin has ripped Ross Chastain on his podcast. But Denny's a pretty good guy for ripping somebody else for doing something he would have done himself. And generally, from the people, the reaction from the fans I'm hearing is, I don't think Ross did anything wrong. How do you see it, Josh?
Yeah, I guess that depends on where you're sitting. Like, literally where you're sitting, if he did something wrong or not. I'm obviously for the Chevys, for breaking up the Toyotas, like all of that. Like, obviously there's going to be 2 other manufacturers that are saying, hey, that's the right thing to do. Do that every time, because you're giving us a better shot to win. And at the same time, if you're Denny and you're looking at it, you're in a situation where, like, I feel like I was about to get wrecked and we were going to tear up a whole bunch of cars and this and that, and I had to make the move because you forced it. So it really depends on where you're sitting as to what you feel about the move that was made. I thought it was a very interesting play to give us, obviously, a great storyline to talk about, but the way it worked out, it worked out in their favor. So that was great to see. You're like, well, Ross Chastain, and just like all of a sudden, oh, what happens to the Toyotas? Oh, what the highest finishing one was 11th or something at that point. Like, it was very interesting wrinkle to throw into a race like that.
Yeah, I think very interesting is a great way to
I'm like tiptoeing around the way to put it.
Because quite frankly, if they wreck, then there's all this condemnation to Ross Chastain. How in the world can you do this? And you've ruined this race, and this is a dangerous move. And again, it wasn't the safest of moves. There's no doubt about that. He if not for some quick thinking by Carson Hocevar, and that was a daring move by Hocevar, and then Hamlin to hit the brakes and kill his momentum. Again, without being in the seat of the car, but I don't want to be driving a car and seeing somebody come up in front of me about, another 20 miles an hour faster and go, oh, I'm going to go get in front of them. It's like, no, I really don't want to do that, and count on that person to hit the brakes and not just like punt me into next week. But again, I know this is the athletic field for competition for these individuals, and this is where some daring moves are made, and daring moves are applauded as long as it doesn't lead to some car flying through the air. So they got away with it this time. Does that embolden somebody else to think, well, I can do that, and they try that at Daytona or they try that at Talladega, and maybe it doesn't quite work, and now you wipe out 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 cars, and suddenly you wipe out a lot of playoff cars if it's deep in the playoffs. So, again, these are professionals. You hope they make the right decisions. They're human. They're not always going to make the right decisions. And we're going to see the moments they make them in real time. We're going to see the moments they make the mistakes in real time. And he got away with it this time. Does he get away with it the next time, or the next person? That's what I wonder about is what happens the next time.
Well, while Team Penske did end up celebrating in victory lane, it was not all rainbows and lollipops at Team Penske when the race was over. We'll talk about that when we come back.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive, and I'm here to tell you why you should shop Echo Park before you buy a car, truck, or SUV. Over half of inventory at Echo Park is priced below $25,000, and car for car, truck for truck, Echo Park Automotive's pricing is $3,000 less than the competition. Maybe that's why Echo Park has over 95,000 five-star reviews. Echo Park Automotive is built to make sure you drive away happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
When it comes to maintaining your engine to run at peak performance, trust Z-Max Micro Lubricant. Z-Max soaks into metal, so it's easy to add to your oil or gas to disperse carbon buildup in your engine, fuel system, and transmission. Protect your vehicle's engine to the max with Z-Max. Check us out at zmax.com or visit us on Facebook and Twitter to find out more about our full line of products. Remember the name Z-Max for your car, big rig, small engines, firearms, and more. That's Z-Max Micro Lubricant.
Doug Rice is your host for Fast Talk every week on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
They have worn our nation's cloth under the red, white, and blue and paid the ultimate sacrifice to ensure freedom.
Start your engine!
Once again, it is the Coca-Cola 600 right here in Charlotte.
William Byron, Christopher Bell, neither one wanting to give an inch. They'll dive into turn number 2.
We've got a new leader in the Coca-Cola 600.
It's NASCAR's most challenging event, the Coca-Cola 600. Sunday, May 25th at 5 o'clock Eastern on PRN, the Performance Racing Network. The NASCAR Xfinity Series heads to Charlotte.
Allgaier down low. It's Gibbs to the high side. They stay door handle to door handle as they race off turn 4.
Chandler Smith will climb the hill. He'll go all the way to the outside wall in turn number 2. That opens the bottom lane.
Kyle Busch and Justin Allgaier trying to thread the needle through the field in a hurry. Jeff Burton's just trying to get out of the way, but he can't.
It's the BetMGM 300, Saturday, May 24th at 4 Eastern on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
We're back with more of the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
And welcome back. Josh Sims from Fox Sports is here, and Dustin Long from NBC Sports. I'm Brett McMillan. We're glad to have you with us. All right, let's talk about what else happened with Team Penske at Talladega, Josh. And, well, Joey Logano was not particularly happy with his own teammate, Austin Cindric, at the end of, I guess it was the first stage, and made it known pretty clearly on his radio. And as it turned out, he got the attention of Baseball Hall of Famer Chipper Jones, who ripped into Joey on Twitter, or excuse me, on X, as we call it now. And this week on Sirius, Joey did respond and said, basically, Chipper needs to stick to baseball. He's never driven a race car at Talladega. But Joey's basic answer to the whole tirade was that, look, there are rules. And rules have been put in place because of things we've done wrong in the past. You don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again. It wasn't the first offense kind of situation. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. And yeah, I lit up pretty quickly because I care. I'm into racing. I'm at 100%, and I expect things to go a certain way. When they don't, yeah, I get ticked off. He says, we've talked. We got to move forward. I explained my side. He understood. We move on. So he didn't say I'm sorry, but he said, hey, that's how I felt.
Well, you don't apologize for things you're not sorry for? Is that what you said?
No, you don't. Hey, you know what? I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's funny.
Though that will be the first question at Texas to the media center this week.
I'll tell you what, I was at North Wilkesboro. They had a press thing and had Joey there today, and that was one of the questions he was asked. And he said pretty much the same thing, is that, they talked. He's not going to air the dirty laundry, but that this was not a first offense, and it was what the straw that broke the camel's back. But no, there wasn't. He basically stayed with his story.
Yeah, it was interesting because he was in my section for the race, and he was my highest running driver, so I was locked in on him. And when he came over the radio and had that tirade, I was like, wait a minute. Like, I needed a replay to see how it played out again, to see why he was so mad. And you understand, right, from a team aspect. And, his big, complaint was, like, we can't let another, team, another manufacturer get this stage point. If we're both lined up, why are you pulling out a line? Why aren't you pushing me? Or why aren't we working together in this scenario when that doesn't happen? And like you said, there are rules and things they try and follow. And I'm sure things are coming down from the boss man saying, make sure, it's not for a win, but it's for a stage win. And make sure, we don't take each other out, but we get it if there's a shot to do it, and we work together to make that happen. And, that's why Joey was so upset, because I'm sure he's thinking, if I'm in that situation and, like, I'm the one behind you, I'm going to push you towards that stage. That's what I'm assuming is what the thought process is.
Well, think about this too, is that, people are like, well, why get upset for stage?
You're right.
Well, you get a playoff point.
Mm-hmm.
And, why does one playoff point matter? Well, one playoff point, had Alex Bowman had, another playoff point,
yeah.
Alex Bowman advances instead of Joey. I mean, they have that issue, but I mean, playoff point could help, I should say, get you into the next round with anybody. And so every point matters. And look, these are athletes, these are competitors. They're going to go for every little bit. So I understand the frustration of any athlete, of Joey in this case. Now he did say, look, should I have hit the button and said as much as I did? Well, maybe, probably not. Probably not. Oh, I wasn't trying to do Joey. I was just, I wasn't even trying. But yeah, you're right. Maybe I'll make some phone calls. But I think that it's just that 1 point can make a difference in the playoffs. We've seen it many times before. Again, if it wasn't for a disqualification to Alex Bowman, Joey's not into the third round, gets the opportunity to win at Vegas and gets into the championship and wins the championship. So we've seen other times where 1 point helps somebody transfer. And again, maybe that's what the difference is. So these guys are going to go for every little bit. And so I truly understand the frustration. And again, yes, I'm sure, I'm sure that was discussed in the meeting, is that, hey, if you're that frustrated, hit a count before you get on the radio, or just yell at yourself for a moment before getting on the radio, because the whole world is listening and the whole world's going to comment on it. And again, it goes back to what he said with Chipper. He says, hey, look, I don't even know the guy. And he said today, he's like, I didn't even know he didn't like me until today. He says he seemed like he was a pretty cool guy, but I guess he doesn't like me so well. But here's another thing to look at this perspective is, here is somebody who is not, and again, he's from Daytona, so he's been around, exposed to racing, but he's not typically been in the sport a whole lot. And here's a guy who's a fan. And now you can debate, hey, does he need to be commenting? And that was one of the things Joey said, is like, look, he's an athlete. He should probably understand better than most people about that there's often more to the story on something like this, and that there's a lot of things go on behind the scenes and so forth. But again, here's a guy who is a fan. And yeah, he was, 2018 Hall of Famer. 2018, he was an honorary race official at Daytona 500. So he's been he's seen the sport from afar. Now, if I'm a team that's somebody else other than Team Penske, maybe I invite him to the next race and just have him walk by Joey Logano a couple times and see if he notices.
Well, the thing is, and let's keep a couple things in mind. Joey said, "I will not tell you what the rules are. That we keep that in house."
Well, we think we pretty much understand what a lot of them are.
But Joey Logano is also a guy that got taken out with his teammate in a race to win the Daytona 500, the year Michael McDowell's up winning. Josh?
Yeah. So, he's got all this stuff in his memory bank, stuff he's remembering about how things have played out in the past, and he's trying to make sure that doesn't happen again. But also, to that point, they've had these conversations behind closed doors, and obviously, to your point, I'm sure he regrets a little bit airing it out over the radio, but he just wants to make sure those points get across. We see it, and it all works out when the team comes away and Team Penske gets the win, and that's all well and good. But they just want to make sure if they're in that situation again, that they follow the quote unquote rules that we don't know, but we know.
All right, the other member of Team Penske. I don't know that I want to get too close to Ryan Blaney right now. Poor guy is walking around.
4 DNFs in the last 7 races.
He's got a black cloud just following him around, doesn't he?
2 engine failures, which you rarely see, and he's got hits with those. And he had the accident at Vegas where he misunderstood his spotter and didn't realize he had 2 cars to somebody to his outside or 2 cars to his outside, and triggered that accident, and then has this accident here at Talladega. So
he's about to win, and he's about to win Darlington.
Yeah,
when Kyle Larson spins out.
So, and pit road cost him. So he's due for something good. And I think that's I think what you look at though is you don't look as much at the bad luck as you look at what they're doing right. And you look at how many times, again, I said earlier, Cindric, this could have been his 3rd win of the year. Mm-hmm. How many races could Blaney have won? Maybe Joey not as much, maybe 1 or 2 before this, where, I think it's certainly been, Ryan's been the strongest car. Last year, the Team Penske didn't win until the 15th race of the season. Again, they had the new car and the body, so there was some work to be done with it. It was not till the 10th race that Team Penske won, but they could have won other races. So, there's a lot of talk, and even on the pre-race show for you guys, Josh, it was Hendrick versus Gibbs, and rightfully so, because they combined to win nearly all the races and led so many of the laps. But don't overlook Team Penske, even though this was just their first win of the season. And I know, talking to Travis Geisler at Bristol, their competition director, saying he felt like they were ahead of where they had been last year at that point. And again, this is the organization that has won the championship the last 3 years, and they are starting off better. That's a team I would keep an eye on. Don't overlook them.
Yeah, and it's important to note, even with those 4 DNFs for Blaney, which is the most right now in the series, because he's doing such a good job of racking up stage points, he's still in good standing when it comes to the playoff picture. And I know it's early to talk about that type of stuff, but anytime you have this many DNFs, you think that guy is in a terrible position in the standings. But Blaney is doing a good job of counteracting the bad with good runs and good stage points.
You would think he was in Brad Keselowski territory,
exactly,
with 4 DNFs.
And then you look up and you're like, oh, well, he's still in. I think he's still in the top 10.
And he's in 8th.
Yeah. I mean, the stage points, even like for somebody like Bubba Wallace, with all the stage points that he has scored this year, it has made a significant difference. And the narrative on Bubba is different. If he didn't have as many stage points, it'd be like, hey, your teammate made it the championship 4, when are you going to do it, and things like that. Now it's like, I'm just waiting to see when Bubba's going to win. It's not like if he's going to win, it's like, when is he going to win? Because they've shown they've been good enough through a good portion of these races. The pit crew is really strong. There's a lot of things that are coming together for that team in particular, that's another team that don't overlook as everybody focuses, or there's a lot of tension to the Hendrick and the Gibbs cars for sure.
Well, each week on the Pit Reporters, we give you a chance to go to GoPRN.com and vote in our poll. And this week's question is, how does Ryan Blaney change his luck? And your choices are: put his shoes on in a different order, go see a witch doctor, carry a rabbit's foot, or throw salt over his left shoulder. Has to be the left shoulder. The right shoulder apparently is worse, more bad luck.
But if he carries multiple rabbit's foot, do they cancel
he might
each other?
need multiple rabbit's foot. Maybe a rabbit's foot, a 4-leaf clover. And what else do you need? A horseshoe?
Jimmy Johnson has
one. Jimmy Johnson's got a golden horseshoe somewhere. Last week we asked you, where would you like the championship race to be? That came on the heels of the story that it may be returning to Homestead, Miami next year. 28% of you said you'd like to see it return to Homestead, Miami. 13% said Las Vegas. 8% said Phoenix, and 51% said somewhere else. I don't know where that somewhere else would be.
Yeah, I tell you, I mean, I like the idea of going back to Homestead. I think that, it's a great track for the competitors. I think the key is the community's got to support it. And you cannot, I mean, look, you can say things you want to say about the racing at Phoenix, but that community supports it, and it is a full crowd, a full house. And if you're not there and you're flipping across the TV, you're seeing NASCAR's championship event in front of a full house, not empty seats. And how many times do you flip across a TV? I mean, I know I've caught myself at times. If it's a basketball, like a college basketball game, it could be two teams, small schools from a Northeast. I don't know anything about or don't follow, but they're playing in a small gym that's packed, and there's an atmosphere. You can feel it over the TV, whereas you could watch like two, I don't know, big SEC or Big Ten teams, and the arena's not full, and it's just there's no energy. So it's like, well, flip, move on to the next thing. And I think that's an important thing, and I think that would be the challenge for Homestead and moving forward. I like the idea of rotating it. And I think a Vegas, a Phoenix. I think Phoenix needs to stay in it because I think Phoenix has shown it can hold a championship event in a very quality manner and deserves to be in there. Other tracks, it would be interesting to see a Bristol.
Yeah. What do you? Well, but the whole weather factor comes in here.
But if the schedule could get moved up another couple weeks to where it's mid-October, you might be able to pull it off.
Yeah, I like the idea. The rotation would be good, like treating it's not a Super Bowl. Obviously, there's the Daytona 500, but you have that rotation of different, cities where the weather will be fine. That's obviously got to be a factor. I can tell you one guy that wanted to go back to Homestead, that's Kyle Larson. All he's got to do is get to that championship 4. He'll be riding that wall all the way to another title. So I bet you he'd be in there voting for Homestead right away.
He and Tyler Reddick both.
Yeah.
When we come back, the All-Star race has a new twist. Let's see what these guys think about it. Stay with us.
For anyone who's worried about back taxes, has not filed tax returns, and doesn't know what to do next, stop and listen. Not filing your taxes can have severe consequences, especially in this political climate. Now that COVID is over, the IRS is getting aggressive, massively increasing enforcement and collection efforts. With politicians making all sorts of promises, especially when it comes to taxes, hiding and not dealing with your taxes will cause you harsh legal and financial ramifications. But right now, the IRS offers forgiveness and writes off a massive amount of tax debt. The Tax Doctor offers a free service that helps people get out of IRS collections and back in good standing with the government. Don't hide or bury your head in the sand. Take advantage of our free service. Call now to learn more. 800-393-5045. 800-393-5045. 800-393-5045. That's 800-393-5045.
Catch Kyle Petty's Back Then Again Country Countdown with Charlie and Debbie here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Start your engine! Reddick goes right to the bottom of the racetrack. Chastain tries to hold on the outside.
Truex on the inside. Byron in the middle. Chastain up high.
Hamlin now beginning to come to the front. He's got the edge now. He'll take the lead away.
Brian Blaney sliding down into the grass. There was a lot of bumping and grinding. And Blaney noses into the infield retaining wall.
Ross Chastain doing a great job. Truex right there, big in his mirror as they race down the backstretch here.
Harrison Burton is spinning down the back straightaway. Everybody going to the top side.
Here comes Kyle Larson. Larson dives to the bottom of the racetrack. He wants to lead all 4.
Chris Buescher has the advantage and a spin off of turn 4.
Yeah, we've got a ton of cars that are in this one, and Larson is certainly one of those cars.
Trouble coming out of turn 4. Hamlin is sideways. The car spins down on the apron of the racetrack.
Byron takes that brightly painted number 24 to the front. He gets a big shove from Daniel Suarez.
This is PRN.
Let's get back to more Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
Sweepstakes fans, start your engines. Visit echopark.com/speedway to enter for a chance to win a Toyota Tundra plus a brand new Thor camper. Visit echopark.com/speedway now to drive off a winner. And we welcome you back. Dustin Long from NBC Sports is here, and Josh Sims from Fox Sports. I'm Brett McMillan. We're glad to have you with us. All right, the All-Star race, once again, coming up at North Wilkesboro. The new twist this year, Dustin, is a promoter's option to call a caution, not anytime he wants, but just about anytime he wants. What do you think about that?
Oh, Marcus, what have you done next? Yeah, I don't know what to think about it. Again, the All-Star race is supposed to be a fun event. It's supposed to have unique twists. It's supposed to differentiate itself from the other 36 points races, and I'm for that. Let's make it different. I don't want to watch just a 250 lap race that is just like any other weekend. So change it up. Last year was the option tire, and again, that was a good experience for the sport to kind of get a sense of what they could do, couldn't do. Obviously, they've used the All-Star race for other innovations that have been used in points races. So, I've heard it's gimmicky. Yes, it is gimmicky. There's no doubt about it. But I think that this All-Star race is, I don't want to say it's gimmicky because I think people think of it in the wrong terms, but I think it's supposed to be something different, supposed to be fun. And if this is something that helps attract more people, then good. And if this is not, then move on to the next idea.
What's the word I used? Interesting. Interesting. I used earlier.
Come on, say what you think.
It's an interesting choice. I guess it gives that entertainment factor if you end up with a race where, let's say, Kyle Larson is beating the field like he did a couple of years ago, and you want to bring everybody back together with a caution and make it a little more interesting in the end. Does that sell it well to salvage something if it's a runaway? Otherwise, like Dustin said, I mean, you give it a try and you say, hey, that worked or that didn't, and we move on to something else the next year.
Well, you tried random inversions.
Yes.
And that may or may not.
And a point system where you needed a calculator.
Yeah. So what I think Marcus ought to do is he ought to go up into the flag stand and then just stand and look at the crowd and go and hold up the yellow flag and go, now, and let the crowd react, and then take it down and go, nah, not now, and then go, now, and then, nah, not now.
Joey Logano was asked about that today, and he said, how do you prepare for something like that? And he's like, look, we anticipate it is going to be to the closer to the end of the race in that window if there hasn't been that caution. So we are anticipating that we're just going to have a short run at the end of the race. And so that as we go do our thinking and processing, that's what we're looking at is, okay, long run at this point, but make sure the car's good on the short run because that's what we think is going to be the case. Now, hey, if Marcus wants to change it up or Marcus wants to, again, give people the close race at the end of the race, then so be it. This may work, it may not. I don't know if it'll work as well as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. versus Kyle Busch. I mean, you didn't really have to come up with any rules last year. He just said, "Here, guys, go out and race and let's follow let's follow him back to the let's follow Kyle back to the garage
every year. It'd be great, right?"
Yeah, exactly. That's what's supposed to happen. Well, and the thing is, that's the thing. You got to remember one thing. This is an entertainment business.
Yeah.
Bottom line, we are in the entertainment business, and this is a strictly entertainment race. No points on the line. Doesn't work towards a championship or anything. Why not? Now, we've seen the All-Star race used a lot of times to experiment with something that ended up being part of the sport. The double file restart, the option tire, the choose rule. I don't want to see this in a regular event.
You're not going to see it. You're not going to see it.
Yeah, that's what I would worry about, and I think everyone's probably on board with making sure that we don't see that in a regular race.
And the one idea that was floated apparently was basically the no rules brung what you got, and that apparently got shot down by the team because they said it would be just cost prohibitive.
I wasn't at Talladega to talk to anybody this weekend, but I mean, I heard on Denny's podcast, I think he referenced that he first heard about a month ago. Again, you're talking about trying to do something maybe a couple months before the race, where teams already have their budget set, and now, look, I totally understand the whole factor of cost, and that's a real thing for teams, and when you have your budget set for the year, And, the point that's being made is you're going to do something to one of these cars. You only have 7 of them, and you're basically ruining it to some degree because it's going to be so different. And do you get another one to replace it? If you want to run what you brung, start the discussion now for next year and start working through those things. And maybe there's something that can be done, or I have no idea, the court matter too, because there's talking about money and stuff like that. Is that something that would hold it up? But it is like that idea, but it's just like, start the conversation now if you can, and look into what's possible, what's not. And then, have maybe a base, and then come up with something a little bit sooner, later. Come up with something later in the year, early ahead of next year, where it gives all teams the chance. Now, the problem with that too is you give the bigger teams more opportunities, more headway time, and they're going to spend more time and effort into it. And are you going to have? It's a great concept, run what you brung, but what if Kyle Larson's the one who is, 6 seconds ahead of the field, and we don't have that promoter's caution, or only have one of those and can't throw it 4 times. Then what fans can be like, oh wow, run what you brung. It was a nice concept,
failure.
but this stunk.
Yeah, Hendrick spent $5 million on this one car
for $1 million prize.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
And that, if you're going to do that too, step up the prize money too.
Yeah.
All right. When we come back, a shocking crew chief change. Stay with us.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive. As you might imagine, I know a thing or two about cars, and I'm here to tell you about a whole new way to buy a car, truck, or SUV. Did you know that Echo Park Automotive has over 95,000 5-star reviews? On top of that, every car that Echo Park Automotive sells goes through a 190-point inspection to make sure that it looks and drives like new, so you leave happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
The speed, the drama, the only NASCAR race in California. The Toyota Save Mart 350 NASCAR weekend rolls into Sonoma Raceway July 11th through 13th. 3 days of high-speed thrills, edge-of-your-seat action, and family fun in the heart of wine country. Bring the whole family. Kids tickets start at just $10. Don't miss NASCAR's biggest stars battling for victory. Get your tickets now at SonomaRaceway.com. This is NASCAR. This is California. This is Sonoma.
Mark Garrow's your host for Garage Pass, here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network. A NASCAR memory with Doug Rice and Kyle Petty.
One of the most iconic moments in the history of the sport. Your dad and David Pearson racing for the win at Daytona 76.
I learned more from my dad in that moment than probably all the years of being his son before that. Ran that race, comes down to the last lap. Pearson passes Petty, Petty passes Pearson. My dad passes him going into turn 3, sweeps up in front of him. They kind of cross over. They get together coming out of turn 4. Even though they're running 180, 90, 200 miles an hour, it's the most slow motion wreck in the history of time. As you watch my dad spin and spin down into the grass, you watch Pearson's car with the front end just caved in come to a stop. And we all leave pit road and run out to the grass. You can see it's myself, it's Barry Dodson, it's Wade Thornburg, it's Dale Inman. We run out and we push the car across the line. We didn't know that if you help the car across the line on the last lap, you're penalized the lap. So if you go back and look at that, my dad finished 1 lap down in the Daytona 500 that year.
Brett McMillan returns with more of the Pit Reporters here on the Performance Racing Network.
And welcome back, along with Josh Sims from Fox Sports and Dustin Long from NBC Sports. Brett McMillan, glad to have you with us. Pretty stunning, I thought, last week, Josh, when Rodney Childers split from Spire. He'd been Justin Haley's crew chief, but, Rodney Childers, that was a huge offseason hire to have him go to Spire, and now just 10 races into the season, 9 races into the season, they decided to go their separate ways.
Yeah, it was surprising because it felt like, at least, with my conversations with Rodney and Justin Haley earlier in the season, it just felt like hey, this is the guy that has so much knowledge and so much experience in this sport that, he can help me reach, other levels. And, I'm learning stuff from him, and we're figuring out this relationship. And they knew it was going to be a learning process. And that was a lot of the conversations we had in the beginning while they had their struggles. But you knew when you have changes with the team, you hope that that's just the growing pains and they're able to figure it out. But apparently it was more than that. And the hope going forward is that, given who Rodney is in the sport, he can find somebody to pair with if he still wants to be a crew chief and help somebody else get to that next level. Not all pairings work out. We see it year in and year out with the sport, and that just wasn't one that worked out. But, for the two of them, hopefully they can, get some good things going for them in the future.
Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, that team's gone through a lot of change already with the car chief, Cheddar Smith, leaving beforehand, which kind of raised my eyebrow in the sense of, gaining attention, in the sense of just that was something that happened in the middle of the season. It's so early, and a car chief is such a valuable person that, they're usually locked down on a contract just like an engineer and crew chief, but they don't move, and you typically don't see them move from one team to the next, and going from there to Joe Gibbs Racing to the 54 team really kind of, I was like, wow, that's Rodney's right-hand guy that is now leaving. And just a few other things I kind of picked up on. I was like, I just kind of had a weird vibe. I wasn't expecting that, but it was an interesting situation. So I think there was, and maybe I'm putting two and two together that shouldn't be, but it was just, again, you see the car chief change and the crew chief change, and they're searching for something, and there was something that wasn't there. And, I guess with the off weekend and since so early, 9 weeks into the season, that's a tough point to make a change. But I think as Jeff Dickerson told, I think the Athletics, just like, hey, we can make it now, or we can make it like during this 28 race stretch where it's even more unsettling and jumbling of everything in the season, even with having Ryan Sparks come back into that position. So. Typically, you see this during an off week, but usually the off week's a little bit later in the season. So I think it was surprising me because how early it was. It was surprising because this seemed like on paper, a really good pairing. It's like, I think going into the season, everybody was thinking, watch out for Justin Haley. Watch out, Spire's doing things. Spire's making big moves, and let's see what Spire can do. And now they have a lot of room to grow, so they've got to make some moves. I mean, this is a team that shouldn't be, standing pat because they've still got a ways to go. But they were making the effort and trying and making some big swings. Sometimes you swing and you miss. Other times you swing and you hit it far. I think getting Carson Hocevar, I think some people would have thought when he came there might have been a swing and a miss because of maybe his, what he did in the Truck Series or didn't do. But look at what he's doing here. And again, he's learning. We're watching him learn on the go, but he's really done some really good things at times. And when he gets everything refined, I mean, that's a guy that I'm really interested to see what can do down the road because he's showing the talent.
Well, and I heard Rodney talk to Dave Moody on Sirius this week, and he said he's a little surprised the phone hasn't been ringing as much as he'd hoped. But I think that goes to Dustin's point, Josh, that we're still so early in the season that I think other teams aren't ready to pull the trigger on any changes yet.
Yeah, and that obviously is a big time factor. And if you feel like your team is running well, or if you feel like your team is in a position where you need more time, more of a sample size before making a move of that magnitude, which is a big move to make this early in the season, you're going to want to give your team that time. But it is interesting when you have a name out there like that in the sense of a big time free agent, being out there that could be a missing link to a lot of teams. But there has to be a place for them to go and a team willing to make a move like that. And to Dustin's point, it's so early. Like, the other teams aren't at that position just yet.
Rodney's problem is his honey-do list is now a honey-done list. And now he's looking for things to do. When we come back, Texas lies ahead as it starts a stretch of intermediate tracks. And that's the bread and butter of this series. So what are we going to find out? Who's got it and who doesn't? Stay with us.
Attention men, here's a great way to have more fun in bed and save money. If you want to take something like Viagra, they can give you a way to pay as little as $2 a pill. Yes, $2 a pill. Compare that to prices as high as $60 per tablet. These pills work for men to improve their performance and confidence. You'll love them. And now for the price of 2 or 3 pills, you can get 50 or more for around $100. You'll save hundreds of dollars off retail prices. That's enough to buy your date a nice Christmas dinner. Don't pay expensive prices for Viagra. Call now, order 50 or more of our blue pills, and pay as little as $2 a pill and save hundreds of dollars. Call anytime for confidential shipping.
Call Steelman Pills now. 800-475-8167. 800-475-8167. 800-475-8167. That's 800-475-8167.
Lenny Baticki brings you PRN at the Track every week here on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
It's hard to believe in this day and age in the United States of America that children are hungry.
Our time on this planet is short. We have to give back to those in need.
Every child has a chance, no matter what obstacles they may encounter.
Never have we been taxed more as a society to help kids the way we are right now.
At Speedway Children's Charities,
our mission is simple. Help every child we can.
Because all children
deserve joy
and hope
and love.
I'm PRN's Doug Turnbull, co-host of the 5 to Go podcast, a weekly deep dive into 5 motorsports issues. Devin Kupka gives the Gen Z view.
One thing that I've never seen before, when the cars got 4 wide, everybody stood up cheering.
And championship-winning mechanic Dan Elliott leans on his decades in the garage and promoting.
Unless everybody is aware of the rules, then no, it's not fair for everyone.
Listen to the 5 to Go podcast on GoPRN.com and subscribe on Apple and Spotify.
We're back with more of the Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
And welcome back, along with Dustin Long from NBC Sports, Josh Simmons from Fox Sports. I'm Brett McMillan. Glad to have you with us. Back to Texas, Dustin, where, gosh, Chase Elliott won last time we were there. And it's become a little more racy the last few years, hasn't it?
Racy and wrecky and, a few other things. I mean, you made the interesting comment earlier just about this is the starts of all these 1.5 mile tracks with Texas and Kansas and at the end of the month with Charlotte. I think one of the things I'm curious about is just, this race last year had 16 cautions, a lot of wrecks, a lot of damaged cars. And, again, there's the challenges with Texas, especially with how flat 1 and 2 those turns are and how the bumps are in 3 and 4. But if you come out of there and wreck a car, and then, we know what the tight racing is at Kansas, that there's opportunity. But again, we've seen some multi-car wrecks at Kansas. You wreck a car there, you really start putting yourself behind. So there is opportunity, and maybe I'm just being the negative Nelly. I'm looking at what could happen and just how it could really set a team back. And is that somebody that's, 12th through 16th in the points who has a playoff position right now and all of a sudden falls way back and opens the door for somebody else? Or is that somebody like Brad Keselowski who continues to fall back because he's just in the wrong spot at the wrong time and just makes a tough situation even more challenging? So it was how they just really wrecked a lot of cars. Great run by Chase. Chase was really aggressive in that race, and that's what you had to do. And he was rewarded with it, while others ended up against the fence and had wrecked cars.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting race because, you look at the last 8 races at Texas have been won by, 8 different drivers. So while we know the guys that are always good there, they haven't necessarily been the guys repeating in the last couple of years. Yeah, it was a sloppy race last year with a lot of cautions and issues. But I look at, it as an opportunity for a guy like Bubba Wallace, who was really good there last year and is knocking on the door. And if he makes, one decision different, he could have been walking away with a win in this one. And we know, Reddick's going to be good. Chase, been a year since he has won a race. Is Texas where he gets his mojo back and is able to get back in victory lane. Blaney's always a guy. And then you brought up Brad, who, it feels like we're going to a bunch of tracks in a row where it's like, well, he's having a rough season, but hey, guess what? But if he's going to do it anywhere, it was Talladega because he's a 6-time winner and he was runner-up twice last year. And we come to a place where he's been runner-up a number of times at Texas, and it's like, well, this is the last hope for Brad to get into the postseason. So I don't think opportunity race is the right word for it, but I think it does present opportunities for guys if it races anything like last year where we have guys that are strong and all of a sudden there's some issues or just and
it puts strategy into
play,
and track position, when you pit, when you don't, and things like that. So, I mean, last year's race, and I've been rewatching it this week, is been fascinating because of all the cautions and how it disrupted everything and how chaotic that final stage was. And again, it's it was survival of the fittest, and Chase got it. And as Josh said, he hasn't won since in a points race. He did win.
He won
the Clash, but he counts that. And maybe his fans do, but the stats, it doesn't count officially. So he's on a year plus, just over a year now since his last points win.
Well, at the beginning of the year, we hear guys talk about when are you going to know what you've got, and so many of them say by the time we get to the 600, we'll know what we got. Well, as we've talked about, 1.5 miles, Texas, Kansas, forget the All-Star race, Charlotte, and then a week after that is Nashville, which is 1.25 miles. And so, we got a stretch here of intermediate tracks, for the
and Michigan after that.
And Michigan after that. So you've got a stretch here where if you don't have something good right now, then as far as intermediate tracks go, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
I would think.
You're going to be exposed, because you're going to go out there week in and week out at this style of racing and struggle, and you're going to see the impact in the standings. And you don't want to be going into those summer months if you don't have a win already under your belt in a situation where you're not where you want to be and you continue to fall behind the 8 ball because you're going 1.5 miles, 1.25 miles, and the same guys are dominating and you're falling behind. And that's why it is so concerning to bring up a guy like Brad that's struggling. And you'd like to be on the opposite end of that, like a guy like Ty Gibbs, who's finally starting to click and move in the right direction, as opposed to, what Brad is going through right now and pointing at the past, but knowing the trend is not showing what's been happening in the past, I
mean, because we look at the season to this point, what are we, 10 races in now? You've had 3 super speedways, counting Atlanta, and a road course. So, 6, and then 2 short tracks. So, you really haven't gotten into the meat of the schedule as far as what types of tracks you've run, Dustin. So, we are going to find out here in the next 5 weeks who's got what.
Well, you've hit most of the playoff tracks. Obviously, Kansas is a playoff track still, but you've hit a lot of the playoff tracks, so you have a little bit of an idea. I think this is a good point, and it'll be interesting to see what happens here. With I think Josh is right and says it well, is that you can't hide in this stretch, and this exposes. This is going to expose people, and then it puts the pressure on the teams to, those that are really good on the road courses. And again, there's a few of those coming up, so it gives an opportunity to an SVG. I'd say an AJ Allmendinger, but he's getting close enough to, that colleague operation where he's, close to it. And I just wonder too, is how many drivers will make it on points this year? Because what is it, 6 winners, first 10 races, I think is what it is, or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And
sounds right.
And last year 2 made it on points.
Yeah.
And we've seen Christopher Bell win 3 times, Denny Hamlin win a couple times, multiple winners, and Kyle Larson win a couple times.
Yep.
So is it a case that these guys are going to start gobbling up more of these wins because maybe the 1.5 miles will favor certain drivers or teams? And does that leave more opportunities to get in on points than what we've seen the last few years? That's another element of it that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, is really how many are going to be racing for points. And does that open the door further if AJ doesn't win for him or for some others in his situation? And it really could make, I really think, I know you guys are enjoying it right now, Josh, doing the first portion of the season, but I know for us at NBC is what really looking forward to, if this happens, the last 4 races before in the regular season before the playoffs, because we've got the last 14, that there could be really a lot of drama, a lot of things for us to talk about on our broadcast coming up based off of what's happened right now.
Because as you guys talked about, right after Michigan, then you get the road course at Mexico. Yep. You got another super speedway at Atlanta. You got the Chicago street course, another road course at Sonoma. Yep. Then Dover, Indianapolis.
There's the Pocono in there.
You got Pocono in there. You've got, you got the Watkins Glen in there. I mean, so it's, So you got this other whole variety, back to kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the year. Again, this variety of tracks, which if you struggle on those, you better make hay in these next 5 weeks or you're going to be in big trouble. When we come back, time for our white flag laps.
This is Kyle Petty for Echo Park Automotive. As you might imagine, I know a thing or two about cars, and I'm here to tell you about a whole new way to buy a car, truck, or SUV. Did you know that Echo Park Automotive has over 95,000 five-star reviews? On top of that, every car that Echo Park Automotive sells goes through a 190-point inspection to make sure that it looks and drives like new, so you leave happy. It's even in their name, Echo Park Automotive. Every car, happy owner. The official used car dealer of Speedway Motorsports.
We work hard to keep our cars looking great on the outside, but engine components need our attention too. That's where you can trust Z-Max Micro Lubricant to disperse carbon buildup in your engine and fuel system to keep your car or truck running at its peak. By soaking into the metal of your engine, Z-Max Micro Lubricant improves performance, extends engine life, and reduces emissions. Trust the many customers who've said, "Thanks for saving my engine." Find out more at zmax.com or follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
Doug Rice is your host for Fast Talk every week on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.
Our planet is home to some of the most amazing creatures you could ever imagine, from the biggest bears to the smallest birds and everything in between. If we want our kids and their kids to experience the magic of wildlife that we have today, it's on us to step it up and take action. You can make a difference. Learn more about wildlife conservation in your area and how you can help. This is Eli Winders. Let's make sure our wildlife is around for generations to come. Y'all take care of the earth and it'll take care of us. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
The speed, the drama, the only NASCAR race in California. The Toyota Save Mart 350 NASCAR weekend rolls into Sonoma Raceway July 11th through 13th. 3 days of high-speed thrills, edge-of-your-seat action, and family fun in the heart of wine country. Bring the whole family. Kids tickets start at just $10. Don't miss NASCAR's biggest stars battling for victory. Get your tickets now at SonomaRaceway.com. This is NASCAR. This is California. This is Sonoma.
Let's get back to more Pit Reporters on the Performance Racing Network.
And time now for our white-black laps. And first up from Fox Sports, it's Josh Sims.
Yeah, and for this one, I just wanted to give a big shout out to Artie Kempner, our director over at Fox Sports. He's moving on to greener pastures. He's headed over to ESPN to direct Monday Night Football. But this is a guy that's been with Fox, directing the Cup races for 3 decades now. He's been really instrumental in kind of bringing our coverage into the next generation and doing so many great things. And he's a guy that does all the little things and all the big things for us on the broadcast and keeping us as a team together. So it was great to have him direct the final race over at Talladega this weekend, to give him his flowers and send him on his way to Monday Night Football with the other guys over there. But it was great working with him for the 4 years I did and getting to know him.
What do you ever do with a gopher cam?
That's a great question. I brought it with him.
You could take it with him to ESPN. We're going to have a gopher cam on Monday Night Football. Next up from NBC Sports is Dustin Long.
Well, we kind of talked about it, but I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen these next few weeks in the terms of who the new winners are going to be. Are we going to see new winners, and who those are? There's certainly a lot of drivers that haven't won yet. You look at a Tyler Reddick, you look at Chase Elliott. We talked about Bubba Wallace, as Josh talked about. He's good at Texas, and he's been good at Kansas. I mean, could we be talking in 2 weeks, Bubba having 2 back-to-back wins? Quite possibly. You never know what the way that things are going. So, I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen, who the winners are going to come up with these next few weeks, because there's a lot out there that have yet to win and starting to feel the heat about needing to get a victory.
Hey, it's going to be, like I said, we're going to find out who's got what here in the next few weeks. We kind of joked around about what Ryan Blaney needs to do to change his luck. Well, there's another team that needs to find out what to do to change their luck, and that's Roush Fenway Keselowski. Those poor guys can't get anything going their way. The only guy that's run really well is Ryan Preece. At Talladega, for instance, though, Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski went out in just about back-to-back green flag laps. Both of them go out in wrecks, not of their own making, and then Ryan Preece goes out, finishes second, and then gets disqualified. And I said, could the day have gone any worse? And during the break, Dustin Long said, yeah, he could have won and then been disqualified. Yes, it could have gone worse then, apparently. But those poor guys, it just hasn't gone their way. Lots of bad luck for Keselowski. Maybe this is the week they turn things around, because Brad Keselowski has been good at Texas. We'll see. Dustin, Josh, thanks a lot for being with us. We'll talk to you next week on The Pit Reporters.
Join us again next week for The Pit Reporters on PRN, the Performance Racing Network.